Guides us through the overwhelming world of personal finance is our good friend Vera Gibbons. Vera,
so nice to be back.
We're happy to have you
with
back
the dream
here.
team.
Thank you so much. Well, you know, for a lot of us, buying that first home is kind of a nightmare. I mean, it's the first, of course, a few years ago for me, but that was the first shot of reality.
And coming up with the down payment is one of the toughest obstacles. The biggest obstacle to home entry is coming up with that 20% down. So challenging.
So what was out in 2014? What's in now for 2015?
Okay, well, we can start with savings is out and impulse spending is in. I mean, it's becoming so difficult to save now. All of our costs are going up, healthcare, education, just about everything but gas, right? And it's becoming way too easy to actually spend, particularly given the growth of mobile-based payment systems like Apple Pay, for example. Whenever you have like a contactless transaction as such, you don't give it much thought. So I think we're going to see a lot of impulse spending this year in particular and beyond, because this is sort of the wave of the future. Kids love it. Millennials are really gravitating toward it. And I think the next generation is going to take to it too at some point.
You're talking to a former Republican congressman, and he's like, save, right?
Well, what I'm hearing here is I appreciate Vera's veracity, because she's not sitting here going, here's the model for what we ought to do, here's the danger, here's the real world of what's coming. So with that in mind, the fact that people are not saving and everybody's going to spend beyond their means, what else is happening out there?
It's so hard to save these days. You've got the people who are out of work, underemployed, project workers, contract workers, that whole thing. So, okay. What also is out, trade-up home buyers, and what's in is first-time home buyers. Now, this is sort of interesting. Zillow, which I blog for, is predicting that rents are going to outpace home values by the end of 2015. They're going to grow at a rate of 3.5% through 2015 and then outpace home appreciation. So that's going to take some of these otherwise content renters out of the rental market and into the housing market, and this in turn will force builders to actually build more entry-level affordable homes. So I think that's sort of an interesting phenomenon.
So is this a good thing or bad thing? Sum it up for us.
Well, I think it's a good thing. We need those entry-level buyers to actually jump in there. They've been reluctant to do so, as you mentioned.
They can't get approved.
They can't get approved. They can't get the lending. They can't come up with a down payment. There's a lot of obstacles to entry. So we need them. The housing recovery is obviously happening, but we need them to jump in there because the investors have left the market.
And
the rents are ridiculous. You know, half of all renters are paying over 30% of their income is going to housing.
That's ridiculous.
That's too much.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a collective realization, hey, wait a minute, eventually it'll be cheaper to own a home, and thus triggers the demand, which will prompt the supply. But
it is still cheaper. It is still cheaper to buy a home now in most major markets. But that gap is narrowing to some degree. But
okay. What
nice
else?
to see them jump in there. Okay.
You're talking about employment. Traditional employees, you say, is out. Fixed-term contract workers in for 2015.
People like me and you and whoever else. I mean, I'm a contract worker. I'm a freelancer. So when you think fixed-term contract, you think athletes, actors, actresses. But now this is like a lot of us, and it's a growing percentage of the workforce. It's about 30%, a little over 30% of the workforce these days are the project workers, the freelancers, the people who take on one project after the next. So the whole full-time stuff with the benefits and all that, gone.
Well, mindful of that, and the fancy term that a lot of my friends use is consultant. I now go from contract to consult.
Yeah.
So you consult us. With that being the reality, now you got to get your health insurance on your own. You don't get the tax deductibility that companies get or have gotten in the past.
You don't get the retirement plan. You don't get the company match.
So you said it was tough to save. No, people don't have a choice. They're going to have to find a way to save if they're going to survive.
Right, and the only way to do that is to spend less and live below your means, essentially.
Now, I'm curious, because you're saying that traditional employment is kind of out, but is that because more companies are letting go of people or not giving them the full-time hours? We've been talking about Obamacare for several months now, and then like docking people hours so they're not really full-time, that they're more part-time.
The companies love it this way.
I
mean, they've got us right where they want us. They don't have to pay out those benefits. They don't have to do the health insurance. So they like it. It's just people like me and whoever else, the freelancers, are not that keen on it. I mean, the lifestyle's fine. You have some flexibility, but you're not getting those key benefits.
Right.
So the bottom line, I'm just curious about this. We all thought that we would give our children a better way of life. We all thought that post-war, late 20th century American prosperity would continue on and on. Political decisions, economic fallout, and now a new grim reality. What is the new normal?
The new normal is like the contract workers, the projects, the renting a house instead of actually buying a house. I still think the American dream is to buy a home, and more millennials are expected to find a way to get in there this year and beyond. But It's a different landscape these days. You've got all these different people living with one another. Families, cousins, relatives piling in a house because the rents are so high. So it's a whole different landscape.
Real quickly, let's go into credit card swiping. That was 2014.
Yes.
So 2014. What is 2015?
Credit card dipping.
Yes.
This is going to be mainstream in 2015. It's already starting to roll these cards out now. Yeah, so the magnetic stripe cards, the old cards that we all have, so many problems with them in terms of breaches and counterfeit fraud. So this new way of credit card dipping, where you're just it'll take a little longer to do the transaction, but the technology is more secure, so I think consumers will ultimately feel a little more confident when they do charge on their credit card. So this is actually expected to happen by the end of 2015.
Are you talking about the chip that's going to be in the cards?
It's an embedded chip, yes.
An embedded chip. They've been doing this for quite a while
They've
now in
been,
Europe.
well, we're the last to actually adopt the technology. It's been everywhere in Europe, and we're pretty slow to do it because it's very costly to
I want them to go to fingerprints.
I don't know that I
Will
want
that be in for
wait a minute.
2016.
Then-
But it'd be so much easier. Do you know how difficult it is to remember these passwords?
And do you know what it means to your personal security to have your fingerprints suddenly stored by stores and ending up in the hands of government if you're not a suspect?
Right.
There are all sorts of things that go on there. And when I hear the word, it's interesting though, with the cards now, the double entendre is swipe like somebody shoplifting.
Yeah.
With the chip, for a guy like me, I'm going as a potato or tacos.
Come on.
Cheap joke to make, but food for thought nonetheless.
That means it's
Vera
lunchtime.
Gibbons,
Throw
thank
in
you.
something witty.
I have to find a way. I'm a word merchant who has to transition, you see,
Good.
and not in addition to being weighty as an anchor to get this done.
You've done good.
Well, thanks, as you always do, Vera Gibbons,
Always good to have
making
you.
sense
Thank you.
of what to do with our dollars. Steve Cordes is going to step in with financial news and political endorsement, I guess. But right now, a Newsmax Now update here on America's Forum.